Hello, hello. Welcome to my stream.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Doing great. What's your name? What can I
Uh,
call you?
yeah, Jamal. You just call me
Nice to
Jamal.
meet you, Jamal.
Thank you.
My
Thank
name is Naomi. What would you like to talk about?
you. I just want to pick your brain about a few things here.
Hit me
Do
up.
you,
Let's go.
yeah, do you believe in God?
I'm more agnostic, so I don't really think too much about undecidable questions. So to me, it's less of a yes or a no and more of a I can't really know, so I'm not gonna try to weigh in either way.
I see. I see. Um, I wonder, do you know like the whole origins of the whole gender ideology? You know, the whole idea that sex and gender are two distinct things. Because historically, for thousands of years, there was no separation between like sex and gender. Gender was,
Well, although so I do want to push back against that a little bit.
yeah,
Although we didn't have the linguistic distinction between someone's social role as a gender versus someone's biological characteristics, these differences between the societal phenomenon and the biological phenomenon still exist. I mean, if you go way back to hunter-gatherer societies, the way that we had men doing hunting and women doing gathering, these are social roles, and so gender still existed back then, and it was still conceptually not the
mm,
same thing as biology, even though they didn't have the terms for that. But
I
if
mean,
you want to talk about the origins of our current understanding of gender, we can absolutely do that too.
yeah. So like gender, like at least in the English language, is for a long time has been in reference to, or yeah, it was in reference to grammar, right? That's what gender was used for. But now it's
It's
kind of
it's
like,
etymologically from the word genus, right?
I don't know, maybe I have to look that
I
up.
think it is. It's just it came from the word of kind or type, and so it was oh, types of people, their genders.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, my point is, what I'm trying to get at is that this whole idea that sex and gender are not unified, that they're distinct, came from the humanities, from the social sciences, in the 1960s and 70s, you know. And
I
one,
think that social science is a base profession. I love science, regardless of if we're studying, the physical world or the things that we as society create. Both are really cool. Science is awesome.
well, social science, I don't think that's like a hard science, but
Well, it's not a
yeah,
hard
but
science, but it's an application of the scientific method. You'd be crazy to call that not science.
well, okay, but my John Money was one of the guys, the one who popularized, and even I think he invented the whole idea of gender roles. And yeah, if you do you
He
probably
was
know.
certainly the first to coin the term within an academic setting. That is true.
Yeah, and if you don't know about him, like, man, that guy was just pretty twisted in the head, to say the
So
least.
I hear what you're saying. I think that John Money is a pretty bad character. Fully honestly, he's a pretty bad character. But at the same time, I try to, distinguish the person and their own personal morals from their scientific contributions. I mean, I'm sure that you think the Constitution is a very nice document, even though it was written by slaveholders. I mean, so you can separate the morals of the person from their contributions to society and the public, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like my conscience gets the better of me, and I just don't do want anything to do with a person because of what he has done, you know, because of his morals. But
I mean, people could say that same thing about the founding fathers.
yeah, yeah. But in my belief, and this may sound like bad or to you, but I believe that like there's only two sexes, right? And I believe that there's no disunity between sex and gender. I believe that's just an ideology that's been pushed upon the public for 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 the last several decades, and it's been
I
ramping up a lot in the past few years, and it's just bringing a lot of confusion to a lot of people. Now there's multiple genders now. Now there's How many genders are there? Like 20 plus now? Um,
Well, I mean, it exists on a spectrum, so it's like I don't think there's like a concrete number, and there doesn't need to be a concrete number.
I mean, do we really need all of this? Like, can we keep things like more simple and can we not like impose our ideology onto people? Like for me, like
Would you?
if I
Can I
see,
ask you a question?
yes,
If you were going to raise kids, would you teach them to be Christian?
would I teach them to be Christian? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I'll teach them about God, but
Isn't that
that's not.
imposing an ideology on children?
Um, I guess you could say that, yeah.
So
But that's
I don't
not.
care whether or not like someone's
But
imposing an ideology on
that's
children. I care
but that's
whether
my
or
own
not it's
child.
accurate and it's useful and it's good.
But
And
that's my own
honestly,
child, though.
I think that like, sorry.
But that would be my own child, though. Like I'm not vying for Christianity to be taught in public schools. I'm not vying for, Disney or whatnot to have Christian themes in their movies or whatnot. Like I'm not I'm not vying for Christians to have Christian pride parades, and walk up and down the street, you know, and not vying for a Christian Pride Month. Like I'm not vying for anything. Like I'm not trying to like
Okay.
impose. Yeah.
I hear
So
you there. I mean, like, the thing is, like, our I guess okay, we have lots of conversations, lots of different directions we could take this conversation. I definitely want to push back against the idea that there's only two sexes, and the idea that gender equals sex, that it's a new phenomenon. And we can also get into like, teaching like LGBT identity in schools. Out of these topics, which ones would you want to like? What would you like to get into first?
um yeah, it's up to you. I would maybe prefer going to the whole how it's changing people's worldview about about gender and sex, because like when I was younger, like maybe I'm just getting old, but when I was younger, like no one talked about being non-binary, pansexual, unisexual, trisexual. I don't know, it's just so many different terms now. And
Sure. Yeah, can I talk about why I think it's a good thing that like, these identities are becoming more well known?
sure, go ahead,
So
shoot.
ultimately, there will always exist people that are not cisgender and people that are not heterosexual. And if like people are aware of this from a young age, that oh hey, trans people exist, gay people exist, this normalizes the fact in their mind that oh, gay people exist, and this teaches them not to hate gay people, but rather just to perceive them as people. And I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, we shouldn't like bully people, we shouldn't disrespect people because
Then
of their
teaching kids at least
identity.
what LGBT identity
Well,
is in schools helps
but
that happen.
listen,
Like you don't need to
but
tell them like, oh, you should be trans, and that's not what's happening. It's just like, oh, hey, trans people exist and gay people
so
exist, and
so
that's
you
a great
admit
thing.
so you admit that you want this like normalized. You want this to be mainstream. Is that what I heard from you?
I mean, I want it to be normalized in the sense that everybody's just okay with the existence of gay and trans people. Like I don't. It doesn't matter to me like what percentage of the population they are. I just want them to be seen as just regular people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the vast majority of people sees them as just regular people, but there
You are
are,
correct about that.
yeah. So like why keep imposing it onto people? And another thing is
Wait,
that
what's being imposed on the people? They're just being made aware that LGBT people exist. That's not imposing anything.
well, there are a lot of people out there who are not, how can I say it? They're outliers. They're people who there's something about them that doesn't make them quote unquote normal, right? There's people who are dwarfs, right? There's people who have like genetic diseases. There are people who have like birth defects. There's all kinds of people that has
And the
something
existence of
about
these
them.
people should be normalized and non-political.
Yeah. I mean, how about we just teach children to not bully others and just to love other people instead of, imposing this gender ideology, which I
Wait,
do
wait.
not agree with.
you still need to demonstrate how this is something being imposed on kids because like nothing's being imposed on them. They're just being told that LGBT people exist. That's not imposing an ideology on anyone.
No,
That's
no,
just being made aware
they're
of the existence of people that exist.
well, that's not true. Children as young as 5 are being encouraged to disregard their anatomy and choose their gender based on their feelings. This is being taught to little children. And
Wait,
even the
wait.
curriculum,
How are they being told to like change their gender? They're just being told that like LGBT people exist. Like you need to
no,
demonstrate that
no, no,
kids are being told like, oh, you should change your gender based on your feelings. That's not what's happening. Like
no,
I've seen how these
they're
kind of
being
like
taught,
educational lessons go down. It's just, oh hey, gay people
they're
exist.
being taught,
Boys
no,
can like boys.
this is actually reported in the news. They're being taught to disregard their anatomy and just choose their gender based on their feelings.
Who's encouraging these kids?
Um, School teachers.
That's not what's being taught in schools. Like overwhelmingly, what's being taught in schools is LGBT people exist, and this is a good thing.
No, I think you got it's on my laptop right here. It says, I don't know if you can read it. It says how public schools brainwash young kids with harmful transgender
That
ideology, and this
seems
is
like a very unbiased article. Wow, look at that title.
the New York
Oh, the
Post.
New
So,
York Post. Oh, let's go. New York Post is very far right.
maybe, but
And also like
I
that's an
mean,
opinion piece. That's not like based in facts.
well, they did report about a woman, a mother in California who raged at Spreckles Union School District Board for allowing teachers to coach her 12-year-old daughter on becoming a boy, choosing a boy's name and hiding
This is an
the
anecdote. I don't care about like someone's personal like one individual story. I care about the broader trend. And the broader trend is that overwhelmingly, LGBT identity being taught in schools is just being told these people exist and that's okay. Like I really don't care about the anecdote. I care about the broader trend.
you care about the broader trend. Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
What percentage do you think is are people who are intersexed?
People that are intersex, it's about 2%. That's as common
Yeah.
as people with red hair. That's millions of Americans.
Yeah, that's actually false. That's been debunked by a scientist.
I know about
Um,
this study. I would love to talk about this study. So this specific
uh,
study tried to quote unquote debunk the claim that like 2% of the population is intersex by defining intersex very rigidly based on only people that have ambiguous genitalia. But guess what? Biology accounts for more than just your genitals. I mean, we have things like anatomy, chromosomes, hormones, potential to reproduce. All of these things can vary on a spectrum. And I think that categorizing intersex as a broad category that encompasses all of this variation is a great thing to do because it more accurately represents all the different types of intersex people that exist. Like if you're quoting that study, that only refers to a very specific subset of intersex people, which sure, the people with ambiguous genitalia are very rare, but there's more ways to be intersex than just having ambiguous genitalia.
yeah, I'm talking about Leonard Sachs' study. Is that what you were referring to?
I believe that's the
Yeah,
study.
yeah. So he said that according to him, and I have this study right here on my laptop. It reads, um, well, I'll just quote just a few lines here. It says many reviewers are not aware that this figure includes. He's talking about Ann Fossil Sterling figure about 1.7% being intersex, but he responds that many reviewers are not aware of this figure includes conditions which most clinicians do not recognize as intersex, such as Klinefelter syndrome, Turner syndrome, and late onset adrenal hyperplasia. If the
Yeah.
term
Do
intersex,
you know why, like, so often these intersex conditions go by unnoticed?
why?
It's because they're not visible at birth. I mean, you can have XX chromosomes and be entirely male, but not know it from birth because your body externally looks entirely male. This is still an intersex condition. It's just hard to diagnose because you'd have to look inside or do chromosome testing. It's still an
Well,
intersex condition.
well, let's hear or read his rationale why that's not the case. If the term intersex is to retain any meaning, the term should be restricted to those conditions in which chromosomal sex is inconsistent with the phenotypic sex. or
You just
in
listed a
which
condition where chromosomal sex is inconsistent with the phenotypical sex. Klinefelter syndrome is literally that.
well, not according to him, and it says in which the phenotype is not
What? No, no. This
classifiable.
is this is. I think you actually just misunderstood what he said. I think he's trying to say that only like rare chromosomal abnormalities, like Klinefelter's, would be an intersex condition.
Well, he's saying it should not be considered intersex, and he says because um, well, let me just finish read this. It says which chromosomal sex is inconsistent with the phenotypic sex, or in which the phenotype is not classifiable as either male or female. Applying this more precise definition, the true prevalence of intersex is seen to be about 0.018%, almost 100 times lower than Fossil Sterling's estimate of 1.7%.
Okay, I think I can explain this with a graph if you would allow me to. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with what a bimodal spectrum looks like?
No.
Okay, I can absolutely explain this. So, biologists recognize that biological sex is distributed bimodally along a spectrum. So, essentially, you can think of group A as like males and group B as like females. So, obviously, like, most of the population roughly falls within male or female, although there still is some variation between. That study you're looking at says that intersex should be just this very specific part of C. When in reality, there's a lot more to see than just that very middle part, you know? And so it really is more useful to define intersex as the broader category of C rather than just the vertex of C. That's why there's really about 2% of the population that is intersex.
You're right. Where'd you get that from?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
we can
is
look at
that
like the Scientific Americans, like this one's pretty cool. They demonstrate the biological sex spectrum and like all these intersex conditions that lie along the middle. And a lot of these intersex conditions are recognized as forms of intersex conditions, but that study wouldn't count them.
okay? That's from Scientific America.
Uh-huh. Scientific American. I also have plenty
American.
of
Okay.
studies about like how gender is more than just or sorry, biological sex is, more than just binary.
A few more questions. So,
Hit me up.
I take it you're a biological male, correct?
I think my biological reality is more complicated than saying that I'm biologically male. I take cross-sex hormones, and this changes many aspects of my biology. So really, it'd be most accurate to say that I have an intersex collection of biological traits that put me more on the female side of things. But obviously, there's some, biological traits I have that
Okay.
would still be considered typically male.
Okay, when you were born, what did they have on their birth certificate, male or female?
Well, the first birth certificate I was given says male, but the one I have now says female.
Okay, so you were born male. That's what I'm trying to get at.
I was absolutely assigned male at birth, but I think that if we're talking about biology, it's more important to classify people as they are rather than how they were with birth. Because, I mean, if I were to go to a doctor, for example, they would need to know that I'm hormonally female because this affects my risk for heart disease, bone disease, and cancers. I'm in line with cis females, not with cis males.
So,
And
so
a
you
doctor would need to
believe,
know this. They would need to know my biological reality is different than that of a cis male.
so you believe that you're truly a female.
I think that most of my biological characteristics are female, but I recognize that I can't give birth and that I have XY chromosomes. I don't think that that's everything that makes someone female.
Okay, but do you know the medical definition for female? You know what that is?
Well,
Um,
there's lots of things that go into it. There's your anatomy, there's your hormones, there's chromosomes, and there's your reproductive system. You could also even argue that brain matter distributions differ between the sexes as well. And three out of those
yeah.
five, I'm in line with females.
Well, according to the medical dictionary, a female is one who is an adult, um, or I should say a woman, and that's what you would identify as, right? A woman?
Yeah, I am a woman. Woman is like a sociological like term. It refers to people that are perceived like people that are assigned feminine gender roles in society.
Okay. So according to the medical dictionary, it reads that a woman is an adult female human. And then when I look up the definition for female, it reads that it's a person typical of the sex that produces egg cells, right? and
That definition is
you
so
never.
hyper specific. It doesn't really capture everything that it means to be female. If you went by that definition, then a doctor would like treat me like I was a male, but that ignores my biological reality of that I'm hormonally female and that my doctors need to consider this. That definition is way too specific to be useful.
I mean, that's how. Okay, I mean that's how we determine what's a female or in other species, right?
Well,
Like
it's really a lot more complicated than that. And I mean, simple definitions aren't the best at being useful. So, I mean, I'd rather go with the more useful definition that classifies that, yeah, I'm hormonally female, and that needs to be taken into consideration. If a doctor's not going to take that into consideration, they're not doing a good job at prescribing me medicine.
I see, I see. Okay, just one more uh question.
Hit me
So,
up.
okay, how can I word it so it won't sound offensive? Let me think. Um, okay, do you think people can have um false beliefs about themselves, right? They can have delusions about themselves, some especially about things that does not
Are you insinuating that gender
conform to
dysphoria is a
reality.
delusional disorder? You can just spit it
I
out. Is that what you're saying?
I believe it is a delusion. Like, well,
So
hear
this is
me out.
actually
Hear me
really
out.
interesting.
Hold on,
Back
hold
in
on,
the
hold on, hold
80s
on.
and 90s, hold up, I need to talk about this. Back in the 80s and 90s, doctors actually tried to treat gender dysphoria as they would a delusional disorder by prescribing antipsychotics and therapy, trying to, get rid of the delusional thoughts. And guess what? This didn't work because gender dysphoria isn't a delusion. It's grounded in reality. It's grounded in the reality of my biological characteristics and the way society treats me are different than what I would desire. You have to be starkly aware of your existence to have gender dysphoria. It's not a delusion. And delusional treatments like antipsychotics and therapy to help people work through the delusion don't work to treat gender dysphoria. So it's not a delusion.
Well, if a male is thinking himself as a female when he's not, how is that not a delusion? Because it does not comport
Trans people are aware
reality.
of their biology. You wouldn't medically transition if you didn't realize that your biological characteristics are different than that of a typical female. And I'm more accurately representing my biology by saying that I have an intersex collection of biological traits that are more in line with females. You're the one that's like lying about biology if you're trying to call me male.
Well, that's what it said on your birth certificate until
Once
until you
again,
changed
I'm
it,
more
right?
concerned with my biological reality, not what I was at birth. It's more important to classify people as they are than as they were.
I see. So do you believe like can anyone have like false beliefs about themselves? Like
Absolutely.
people,
Delusional disorders do exist. Gender dysphoria is just not one of them.
do you believe like anorexia nervosa? Do you believe that's like a false belief about a person's self? Like say
Yes,
like a
that is a
person.
misperception of reality. So if somebody has anorexia, they believe themselves to be, heavier than they actually are. If someone has gender dysphoria, they're aware of their biological reality. These are entirely different things, and they respond to entirely different treatment.
Yeah, you're kind of confusing me because you're saying like they're aware of their biological reality, but you're saying that you're not entirely male, or I don't know what you're saying, but you're saying that you're not entirely male. That's what I'm getting from you, so it's kind of confusing.
Well, right, I'm hormonally female. In most ways, I'm anatomically female. Trans people actually have brain matter distributions that are in line with the gender they transition to, even before they start taking hormones, which is really interesting.
Okay, so do you believe like people that have like body dysmorphic disorder, do you believe that they have like
Body
erroneous?
dysmorphic disorder is also a delusional disorder because it's not grounded in reality. Unlike gender dysphoria, which is grounded in an
Well,
awareness of how your reality differs than your desired reality.
well, I'm glad you said that because that's what I think about people who have gender dysphoria. I think they have a
But I've
very
already demonstrated that
strong.
it's not a delusional disorder. It doesn't respond to treatments for delusional disorders. If it was a delusional disorder, it would be treated by antipsychotics and
Well,
therapy, but it's not.
well, well. I know people who had gender dysphoria, right? And one person actually is very popular on social media. Um, and she was a male. Transitioned to a man, and she detransitioned, and that happened
Okay.
after she turned to Jesus Christ. Like God changed her, and she no longer deals with
So are you
that
trying to
issue.
pray the gay away with conversion therapy? Conversion therapy is literally
No, 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 no,
abuse.
no,
This has been
no, no,
studied
no,
to be a
no,
medical
no, no,
fact.
no, no, no. She didn't go through any kind of like conversion therapy. She just turned to Jesus, and Jesus like supernaturally helped her out.
I mean, like I don't think Jesus cares if someone's trans. That doesn't matter.
Well, I think he does. I think he cares. Like if he
I mean,
created
like
you,
Galatians 3:28 says there is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. I think that being Christian matters more than being male, female, or
yeah,
trans or whatever.
yeah.
Like this is just what the Bible says.
Yeah, the context of that scripture is that like no matter who you are, like we're all
Yeah, so if you're
one
trans,
in the
that's
body
okay.
of Christ. But it doesn't mean like that's God's will for you, you know? Like I don't think like our body, like for Christians, like our body is the temple of God. And I don't think God wants us to, be
Well, I
have a
happen to have a
mastectomy.
trans temple, and I think that's cool.
Like I don't think God wants us to like pay thousands of dollars to get a mastectomy, to have your your gonads cut off. Like, come on,
I
that's
haven't done
just
any of
like,
that. Why are you bringing that up? I haven't done any of that.
well, some have, right, when they transition, right? And
Okay, sure.
I don't think God wants us to be pumped with hormones. I mean, that's just not like natural, you know?
I mean, like so is like treatment for cancer. Like getting,
Well, that's like a
chemotherapy to
disease.
treat your
Come on.
cancer is not normal, but I think you
But
wouldn't have a problem with people getting chemotherapy, would you?
that's a disease. Come on.
I
Oh, let me
mean,
let me let me pick
so
your
wait, why
brain
shouldn't
about
we
this.
so if we can treat cancer, why shouldn't we treat gender dysphoria?
Um, I mean, we should, but
Awesome.
but
I'm glad you agree that we should treat gender
but
dysphoria.
but
Did you know that the treatment for gender dysphoria is gender transition? We actually have a systematic literature review of 56 like peer-reviewed studies conducted between the years of 1991 and 2017 on the effects of gender dysphoria for treating the effects of medical transition for treating gender dysphoria. Out of these 56 studies, 52 indicated that medical transition has a positive effect on the mental health and overall well-being of trans people, also
well,
alleviating their dysphoria. Meanwhile, 4 studies indicated mixed or neutral results, and
let
0 studies indicated that gender transitioning had negative results. The
well,
truth
listen.
is, gender transition is the treatment for gender dysphoria. It's working great.
Well,
This is what peer
listen.
reviewed science says, and I think that's
I have
awesome.
a
We should
study.
absolutely use science to better
Okay.
people's lives and help them.
Well, I have a study here that shows that transsexuals, even after sex reassignment surgery, have a higher than average rate of psychological disturbances and suicide attempts, and in
Oh, I know
almost
that study.
20.
Hold up. Actually, you're misinterpreting that study. I know that exact study. Is that the one? Let me get the title. That's the study that says long-term follow-up of transsexual persons undergoing sex reassignment surgery cohort study in Sweden, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, fun fact. When that study found that trans people still had very high risks of like self unaliving after transition, this doesn't say anything about whether the transition was effective because they compared the trans people's unaliving rates to cis people's unaliving rates. This doesn't say anything about whether the transition was treatment because it's not longitudinal. If you wanted to study whether the surgeries helped trans people, you would study them before and after the surgery. You wouldn't study after the surgery compared to cis people. The data doesn't say that. And actually, if we do want to talk about reassignment surgery, the regret rate for it is only 2.2%. That's crazy low for a surgery. I mean, LASIK eye surgery, for example, has a regret rate of about 4%. I mean, you can rearrange someone's genitals, and to only like 2% of them are like, I wouldn't do it
Well,
again. Like,
well,
that's
hold on,
crazy
hold
to
on.
me.
Your critique of the study, is that from you or from another study that critiqued it?
Jamal, I can read studies and figure out what they say.
Okay, so it's your own personal critique of it. Okay.
Also, the
Um,
study's author itself says that it doesn't prove that, sex reassignment surgery makes trans people still likely to like unalive themselves. This is both I can read the study and the study's author themselves said that the study doesn't say that.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't
Yeah,
know. If you trust the study, maybe you should trust the author themselves too, because they say the study doesn't prove that.
no, let me read,
Wait, you
can I
don't
read the
trust the
conclusion?
study's author, but you do trust what the study says? Jamal, what are you talking about?
No, no, can I read the conclusion?
Hmm.
This study found substantially higher rates of overall mortality, death from cardiovascular disease, and suicide. Suicide attempts.
Overall rates compared to what? It's compared to cis people, not compared to before the surgery. This doesn't prove whether or not the surgery was successful at helping trans people. It just proves that even after surgery, trans people are still marginalized and they're not as accepted as cis
Oh,
people. And this
they're
leads
still
to those
marginal.
issues.
So you're saying that, wait, so are you saying that they still retain this high suicide rate because they're marginalized? Is that what you're
Yeah,
insinuating?
that's the only reason why trans people have high unaliving rates. Did you
No,
know that if a
listen,
trans person is affirmed in their identity, their unaliving rate drops to less than 1/16 what it
this is
used to be?
the
That's
study was
awesome.
done.
We should
Wait,
absolutely
hold
affirm
on.
trans people. That's the
This
reason, like, yeah, affirming them is what makes them
this
happy and want to keep living.
the study was done in Sweden, and we know that Sweden is like super liberal, right?
This study
It,
said trans people are
well,
still marginalized.
not in Sweden. Sweden is like very open-minded. Their culture is like way liberal, more liberal than America for sure. So
People like
that
you telling me to pray the gay away are a reason why trans people are still marginalized.
I did not tell you that. Okay, so please don't put words in my
You
mouth.
insinuated that you wanted me to pray the gay away.
Oh, I'm just saying, like Jesus can change people. That's what I'm saying.
Right. I'm by saying that you're kind of insinuating that that's what I should do.
I mean, it's an option. I mean, like, if
You know it's
it
what you
can't
want me to
hurt.
do. Don't lie to me,
Je-
Jamal. Say
Jesus
what you
can't hurt
actually
you.
believe. Come on. I want to hear what you actually believe.
I mean, yeah, it would be nice if you gave Jesus a chance.
I did. I was raised as a conservative Christian, and I found that there was so much hate and bigotry that I had to walk away from that.
Hate and bigotry. Hmm. Yeah, that's not true
They really
Christianity.
weren't following the word of Jesus.
Well, Jesus said that second greatest commandment is to love others as you love yourself and to treat others the way you want to be treated. So, um, maybe we misinterpreted how they treated you. I don't know, but um,
It's just
just one
curious to
more
me when
point.
all the conservative Christians I interact with can't follow those rules. I think Jesus is a pretty base dude. Like, not gonna lie, Jesus was a super base dude. I just think that his fans are like usually not the best at like following his word.
Okay, okay. Let me ask you a question. Sorry, I said a lot, that was like my last question, but I have one more question. So, I don't know if you heard about this one guy in Canada. He was like 40 plus years old, and he identified as an 8-year-old girl, or maybe it was a 6-year-old girl, right? And he wore his little dress, started playing with dolls and all that. Um, would you consider that? Would you think of that person as someone being delusional?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's delusional, but men who want to transition to being a woman is not delusional.
Those are completely different things. They're not analogous.
How? Well, he wanted to be of the opposite sex, right? But just a different, but also add to that a different age. So
Well,
how
you
is it
can't
not?
change your age, but you can change many aspects of your biological sex. Those are completely different.
But he didn't. I don't even think he went as far to get go through transitioning. He just started dressing up as a little girl, and he acted like a
Okay.
little
This
child.
has nothing to do with trans people.
Well, I mean, it's he wanted it to be of the opposite sex. So but you think of that as someone being delusional, but a man.
Well, you can't change your age, but you can change many aspects of your biological sex. Like, this is just based in facts.
Yeah, okay. You could change your sex, but you can't change your age. Hmm.
Well, I said you
Fascinating.
can change many aspects of your biological sex. There's some that you can't change, but many of them you can. Trans people are aware of this, and we change the ones that we can.
Okay, so can you change like your race? Like what do we draw the line?
Well, race is actually more complicated because race is like intergenerational, unlike gender. So you really can't change your race because you can't change that intergenerational element.
You can't, so you're saying that you can't change your race.
No, you can't change your race.
You can't be transracial. So you know about the woman named Rachel Dolezal, right? She's a white woman, like
Yeah,
well, and she identified as a black woman, and
right. She
she's
she can't change her race because she can't change like her intergenerational lineage. But you can change your like many aspects of your biological sex. These are
but,
completely different.
but that's how she felt. Like like who's anyone
I'm
to
not talking about
invalidate her
feelings.
feelings?
I'm talking about facts. The fact that you can change many
That,
aspects of your biological sex.
yeah.
You're the one who's talking about feelings. You say that I you feel like I should,
Well,
pray the
well,
gay away. Why are you
well,
so interested
why?
in feelings?
Well, it's about feelings for transgenders, right? They feel like they're the opposite. They feel like they're a woman if the person's a man, right? Like it starts off with the feelings, right?
It's less of a like it starts off less of a feeling and more of a I dislike like there is an incongruence between my current biological reality, the biological reality of desire, the way that society treats me, the way that I would like to be treated by society. It's not a feeling so much as a desire, and then as you transition, it becomes a reality. Your lived social experience changes as you socially transition. Your biology changes as you medically transition. These are really cool things.
Um, but Rachel Dolezal, she desired, to
Well,
live
she
the black.
can't change her lineage, but trans people can change, many aspects of their biology, and they can completely change their lived social experience just by socially transitioning. These are
I,
things you
I,
actually can change. That's where
I just think
Rachel Dolezal's different.
I just think it's arbitrary where you draw the line where look, nope, you can't be transracial. Nope, you're delusional
I've
if
demonstrated where you can draw exactly where the line is. The
yeah,
line is things
but
that you can actually change. That's very consistent,
she
and it makes a
actually
lot of sense.
she actually kind of changed her phenotype, right? She got a tan. She was wearing some braids, some cornrows, right?
Well, you
So,
could absolutely change some aspects of your ethnic phenotype, but that's not the same thing as your race.
okay, it's just yeah, like your view is like it's very arbitrary. It's like, oh nope,
It's very, very
I'm
consistent and based in science. That's not arbitrary. I'm
no,
based in what does the most good for the most people, and I think that that's an awesome thing we should do.
no, I think you're inconsistent, but
How am I
it was nice.
inconsistent? Please demonstrate how I'm inconsistent. Please. I would love to hear it.
So you say that that you know, anorexia nervosa is a delusion, right?
Right.
You
And
say,
it's treated by antipsychotics and therapy.
yeah, because the person has a false belief about themselves, right?
Right.
But
And gender
you
dysphoria
don't,
isn't treated by antipsychotics and therapy.
but you
That
don't apply,
treatment failed.
but by that criteria, you don't apply that to those who have gender dysphoria.
No, no, we literally tried to apply that to people that have gender dysphoria, and it failed. It did not work to get rid of their gender dysphoria. This is just what the science shows.
Okay, so
So how am I being inconsistent? Or are you just like lying because you don't like that
no,
I'm
no,
based in reality?
I showed you how you were inconsistent, right?
No, no, no.
You're,
You didn't demonstrate that I'm inconsistent at all. Please demonstrate how I'm inconsistent. I showed how they're different. One responds to treatments with antipsychotics and anti-delusion therapy, and the other doesn't.
so well, maybe the treatment we just don't have like the right treatment yet. I mean, science is always
It is
progressing.
pretty consistent that delusional disorders respond to antipsychotics and therapy. If this was a
So
delusional
that's
disorder,
okay.
it would
If
respond to that kind of treatment, but it's not.
so, so if that's
Sorry,
really
Jamal,
the
that's just the
case,
facts.
if that's really the case, then why did they consider it a disorder and up until recently? And it's probably because of the pressure from the left.
Well, our understanding of science like changes with time
Uh-huh.
as we come to know more facts about the world, and I think that's a good
Right,
thing.
right. Yeah, I think it was called gender I can't even say gender identity disorder until 2013 when the with the release of the DSM-5. So
Right. And our
I,
understanding of it changed and progressed. And now we know it's not a disorder. It's just a, expression of people's different, social, like it's an expression of people's psychosocial identity. And it's also, there are also even like biological markers that are correlated with people being transgender, which I think is really interesting.
yeah, but don't you see that this is not like hard science? Like they're
Wait,
changing
what
they're
about the
changing.
biological markers that indicate someone could be trans? We have studies that show that trans people's brain matter distribution is in line with the gender they transition to, even before they go on hormones. We have studies that have linked genetic variants to increased transgender identity, making it very plausible that it could be some kind of intersex condition of the brain that makes someone transgender. These are biological
Mm,
facts, and I think they're very interesting to study.
Actually, I don't think so. One large twin transsexual adult study found that only 20% of identical twins were both trans identified. So, um, if it was like really genetic, the concordance rate should be close to 100% if genes
It's not
and or
entire. I don't think it's entirely genetic. I just think it's possible that genetic factors could influence it, which seems to be the case. I didn't claim that it's entirely genetic. I want to be clear with that.
I see. Hmm. Well, yeah, I just think you're um I just don't understand how you can say like that man, that Canadian man who claims he's a 6-year-old girl or 8-year-old girl, um, you saying that he's delusional, but a grown
Well, right,
man.
because you can't change your age, but you can change aspects of your biological sex. That's the difference.
Okay, so me being a
I'm being
man,
entirely consistent here.
I don't think so, but me being a man, right? If it's all about how I identify, right? Can I just like one moment identify as a woman because I feel like I'm a woman and just like walk inside of a woman's restroom or a woman's locker room or join a woman's
Is
swimming
that what you think trans
team?
people are doing? That's not what trans people are doing. Like gender transition is an
I
ongoing
didn't I didn't I
process.
didn't I didn't I
Also,
didn't
like
say
social gender, as in like what people perceive you as and what's your lived experience, that progresses over time as you socially transition. Like if you haven't socially transitioned, obviously you're not going to,
so so
look and
okay
fulfill the role of a woman in
so
society.
so what you're saying is that you have to transition to be of the opposite gender. Is that what you're saying? You have to transition? Is that what you're insinuating?
I think that from a descriptive standpoint, what makes someone another gender, like in society, is that society treats them as that gender, and that is their lived experience. And so, under that, if you do want to transition to the other gender, descriptively, you would have to undergo social transition. Now, I think that
Okay,
gendering people based on their gender identity helps social transition move along for people that are early in transition. And I think that it'd be great if we move society in that direction. But descriptively, you kind of do need to socially transition before you have the lived experience of a woman.
yeah, but there are very or I've seen some masculine looking women, right? And
Uh huh.
um and I've seen some feminine looking men, right? So
Yeah.
so you cannot you're saying that all, society
Well,
identifies a
society
person.
perceives feminine men as feminine men. It doesn't perceive them as women.
Yeah, that's true, um but my point is that why can't I just like identify as a woman, right? Even though, and I could just be like a masculine looking woman, right? Since being a man or a woman it's all according to your feelings, how you feel inside, right? If I,
That's not what I said. I said
well,
that
that
being a man or a woman is a lived social experience.
it can
I
be,
think
or
you're conflating gender identity with like gender as a social phenomenon,
no, no, I'm
which is
saying
not
that
what I believe. I believe these as two separate things.
no, what I'm saying is that, um, like for instance, you heard about the whole controversy that happened in Los Angeles with at the Wii Ball, right? So there was a supposed trans trans woman, right?
Uh
He
huh.
entered into the safe space, the safe space of women in the spa, and they're not really
Why do you
dressed.
care so much about anecdotes? I'm interested in broader trends.
I'm saying this to make a point, right?
This is
So
an anecdote. An anecdote doesn't prove anything. The
you
broader trend
identify.
is that hold up. Actually, we have studies on this. The broader trend is that trans people are overwhelmingly aware of, how they might make others socially uncomfortable, and they often misgender themselves or, try to get into like spaces where it's going to be completely private and nobody's going to see if they're going to do like changing, going to the bathroom, that kind of thing. Actually, our studies show that overwhelmingly trans people that are afraid of not passing, like they'll try to use a gender neutral bathroom or even go into like a bathroom that misgenders them just to make other people more comfortable. That's the broader trend. I don't care about your anecdote.
This is not my anecdote. This was reported in the news, right?
I don't care about
Um,
the anecdote. I care about the broader trends. Can we talk about the broader trends?
oh my goodness. Okay, so I think I'm gonna end the conversation here, but it was
Because all
nice.
you have is anecdotes. Every time you've brought up like a news
What are you
article or
talking about?
something,
I gave you
it's been about
studies.
like one person. And every time I brought up something, it's been collections of peer reviewed studies. I'm talking
What are you
about science and broader trends. You're talking about individual people. And here's the thing, there are going to be cringy people in any community. Like, obviously, there are cringy trans people that have done bad things. That doesn't say anything about the broader trend of trans people as a whole. I don't care about your anecdotes. I care about broader trends, which prove that trans people are valid in their gender and that we just need to be affirmed to not be marginalized by society.
Yeah, I agree that they should not be marginalized by society. I agree that we should treat them
Well,
with
telling me to pray
love.
the gay away helps further that marginalization. You're part of the harm that you just claimed as a harm, Jamal.
It's a suggestion, and I know it's offensive, but I'm just saying there is a higher
You're part of
power.
that very marginalization that you like claim to be opposed against. You're so inconsistent, Jamal. I've been consistent the entire time, and now
No,
you're the
you
one being
haven't. No, you
inconsistent.
haven't.
Wowee.
No, you claiming you being consistent doesn't mean that's an actual fact,
No, no,
okay?
you are
And
inconsistent right now because you say that it's a bad thing that trans people are marginalized, but you're perpetuating marginalization by telling me that I should detransition and pray the gay away.
well, I believe and this is my view. I believe it's a delusion. You have a false belief about
And I've
yourself.
demonstrated that it's not a delusion.
It is a delusion. Just like I will never be a dog. Just like I
You're
cannot
denying the
identify.
scientific fact that gender dysphoria is not treated by anti-delusional therapy and antipsychotic medication. You're the one who's denying science, Jamal.
I'm denying science. Okay, can I quote to you a scientist who will?
I'm
This
literally
is
a PhD student. I am a scientist. Hello,
oh, what are you studying?
computer science.
Nice. Okay. Well, I'm gonna quote to you from Dr. Paul McHugh, a distinguished service professor of psychiatry at the you know the distinguished John Hopkins University School of Medicine, and he said transgendered men do not become women, nor do transgendered women become men. All become feminized men or masculinized women, counterfeits or impersonators of the sex with which they identify. In that lies their problematic future. He also said, in fact, gender dysphoria, the official psychiatric term for feeling oneself to be of the opposite sex, belongs in the family of similarly disordered assumptions about the body, such as anorexia nervosa, and body dysmorphic disorder. Its treatment should not be directed at the body, as with surgery and hormones, any more than one treats obesity, fearing anorexic patients with liposuction.
Yeah, that
What do you think?
scientist is wrong. Also, this is another anecdote. You're telling me what one doctor says. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the broader trends of studies and years of research. The years of research show that gender dysphoria is not a delusion and it does not respond to antipsychotic medication and delusional treatment. You quoting one guy's opinion doesn't change that. Once again, you have no like studies about broader trends. You just have anecdotes.
Oh, well, I quoted to you several studies that were not anecdotes, so you're being dishonest there. Um,
Well, I mean, like
yeah,
you tried to say that those studies said things that they didn't say. So I mean, like you're the one being dishonest.
okay, all right. But listen, I think that yeah, well, your beliefs about yourself are false beliefs.
How are they?
Okay.
How are they false? How are they false? I'd love to hear that because I've
Yeah.
demonstrated that I am
You,
more aware of
you're,
my biological reality than you are, and I've demonstrated that my lived social experience is not that of a man.
you,
How am I
you,
lying about my reality?
you are a male, right? That's the way. I'm sorry to bring God into this, but that's how God created you. He created you male, right?
But
And
that's not
you,
my present biological reality. I care
well,
more about
because
how my
because you're,
current biological reality is than
because
what my
because
biology was at birth. I was a baby
because
back then. We treat babies and adults differently. We should
because
care about
you
how people currently are rather than how they were at birth. It's
because you
ascientific to
made
think that people are predestined for something just based on their birth.
because you made the bad choice to quote unquote transition. That's why that's not your
And I'm
quote-unquote
so sorry
biological
that
reality.
you're a part of the marginalization you claim to be against. That's a real L, Jamal.
That's a real. I'm not. Listen, I love you, man. Like, or women, I love you. Okay. Um, I'm not trying to like insult you or anything like that. I'm just saying, like, the reality is you are a male. That's the way. That's how God created you,
I
a
am
male.
fully aware that like I can't give birth and that I have XY chromosomes, but I'm also fully aware that I have an overall female anatomy. I have a female endocrinological
Yeah,
system. And
because
based on
you.
the studies, I have a female brain matter distribution too. These are all biological realities about myself that you're not acknowledging, Jamal. Why are you
But
denying the science?
it's not natural. You transitioned, correct?
Yeah, I did transition.
So you
Great
had
job,
all these
detective.
so you had all these surgeries, right?
I haven't had any surgeries. Why do you think I had surgeries?
Okay, so you had a hormone replacement therapy, correct?
Yes, I take hormone replacement therapy consisting of bioidentical estrogen and progesterone.
Yeah, and you have I mean I don't want to know if you're going to answer this, but you have a you know what that hangs between your legs, right?
Yeah, so what?
Yeah. So you are a male and
Well,
I
that's not
there's
the
not
only characteristic that's considered biologically male. My
yeah, but
hormones are entirely female. My
yeah, but that's
anatomy
not
is mostly female. My brain matter distribution would be female. These are all biological realities of myself that are female. Every time you brought this up, I've admitted, yeah, I've got, uh, an eggplant. Like, I know this. That's not the only thing that's considered male or female about people. There's more to biology than just, what your downstairs region is.
oh my goodness. Um yeah. All right, so you don't have a, you think you're not entirely male because you take hormonal replacement therapy.
Do you know
Hmm.
why biological differences between males and females exist?
Yeah, it's genetic. It's because of your
It's not
genes.
because of genetics, it's because
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
hormone washes that are in our
and
body.
hormones.
First,
Yeah,
hold
and
up,
hormones.
I need to talk about this. First,
Hmm.
when you're in the womb, your body undergoes a hormone wash that is determined by your genetics. But it's the hormone wash itself that determines whether or not you'll develop an innie or an outie, as well as the internal parts that go along with that. And later in puberty, those internal parts start another hormone wash that makes your phenotype either male or female. So, if you take exogenous hormones that are bioidentical, these are the exact same hormones that are produced in a cis person's body. Like the estrogen that I take is identical to the estrogen that cis women produce. You will induce another puberty where your biological characteristics change. This is the truth about transition. Like the only differences between males and females are due to the different hormone washes. Those are what actually cause the physical differences.
Okay, but you have to take HRT, right? To
I
have
love taking
those.
HRT. I think it's a great thing.
You think, yeah, you think it's a great thing. So you take HRT to try to make yourself look like or act like or to change your voice and all that to have these traits that
HRT
are
doesn't
more
change your voice.
feminine.
You have to voice train to change your voice, silly.
Oh, it doesn't change your voice?
HRT actually doesn't change your voice. If you go in the FTM direction, it does, but if you go in the MTF direction, it does not change your voice.
I see, I see. Hmm. Okay. Um, yeah, there's like a lot of people waiting, but one more question. Um, 'Cause since you seem to want me to stay on. What do you think about trans women in female sports? Because
I think that as long as they what?
the recent news report, the recent news report, they recently banned like most trans women from being in women competitive
It was the
sports.
World Swimming Association. I am familiar with that news story. If you
Yeah.
want to talk about like trans women in female sports, then really the question that we're asking is not should biological males compete in women's sports. The question we're asking is does, HRT reduce the biological differences between males and females to bring you in line with cis women? And the answer to that is that for the most part it does. Although I will definitely admit that there are some things that could carry over from male puberty that, might make a trans woman have a slight advantage in one way or another. The most up-to-date study we have on this was done with trans people in the military, and what it found was that prior to HRT, trans women had a 15 to 31% advantage in push-ups, sit-ups, and run speed over cis women. But after just 1 year of feminizing hormones, the push-up advantage and the sit-up advantage went away entirely. Meanwhile, the run speed advantage dropped from 21% to 9%. So sure, there
Well,
could exist some
it's-
slight
well,
differences, but honestly,
one
I don't
source.
think it's that big of a deal based on the current research we have. I mean, sports are inherently unfair on a biological level. Like Michael Phelps has like the lungs of fish and the wingspan of a superhuman, but like nobody's complaining that he has a biologically unfair advantage. So I mean, honestly, I think that like really the solution is just let trans women compete, and if there's like any kind of like greater trends of upsets, then we can like come up with policies that are reasonable to assess which situations would be fair to have a trans woman compete. But for now, like there really haven't been any upset cases. Just a couple trans women have won a couple of
Well,
events, which is kind of to be expected, even if trans women performed worse on average than your average cis woman, just because you're expected to win sometimes just by competing.
mm, yeah. Well, one source reads, this is I'll quote it. It says a groundbreaking new study on transgender athletes has found trans women retain a 12% advantage in running tests even after taking hormones for 2 years to suppress their testosterone.
Oh, that was
Um,
that was actually the study that I was just talking about. Yeah.
yeah, so even after 2 years of taking hormones, they still retain
That
that
study that
advantage.
study found only the difference in run speed. It found no difference in push-ups and sit-ups. So, I mean, sure, you could. I think that it's definitely true that biological changes that you can't change with HRT, like say if you transition later in life, they could be, it could matter for some sports more than others. But I really don't think that
But
that's
but
that big of a deal.
but even like even aside from that, like men, they just have um they're just taller, right? And they have thicker bones, and they have greater lung capacity than their female counterparts, right? And
I mean,
like
HRT changes your bones.
not completely, and cross like the hormone treatment cannot fully suppress like all these biological competitive advantages. So
I've already
um
said that.
yeah, so yeah, so I think it would just be better for them to have like their own league. I don't know. What do you think? Like
The
a
problem is
third?
that like we don't have enough trans athletes to do that, and so like for me, I mean, I will definitely admit that because of biological advantages that could carry over from puberty, there's no perfectly clean solution. But I don't think that having a trans league is a good solution because we just don't have enough trans people to compete. And like if you think that women's sports are a joke because nobody cares about them, imagine what trans sports would be. They'd be even less cared about than women's sports.
Yeah. So what do you think about like the women at
But can I ask, do you care about women's sports?
um yeah, sometimes I watch gymnastics. Yeah. I'm a big Simone Biles fan.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that like people that care about women's sports should care about actual issues facing women's sports. Things like predatory coaches, lack of funding, lack of it being perceived as real sports. I think these are all actual issues that are affecting women's sports. Meanwhile, trans women playing is just like it's proven itself not to be an issue. And also, we can always revise policy if there are outstanding cases.
Yeah. So what do you think about like women who feel uncomfortable with a trans woman in their locker rooms?
Well,
Like
like
for
I
instance,
said, overwhelmingly trans people are cognizant of this and they try not to, put themselves in a situation where they would make others uncomfortable. This is the overwhelming trend of trans people.
yeah, well, like Leah Thomas, right? According to a report, Leah Thomas, from UPenn, her teammates were very, very.
Anecdote.
Oh, I mean, come
I
on,
don't
like
care about your anecdotes. I care about the broader trend.
the broader trend. Well, this can become more prevalent, right? If we continue on the course we're going on, right? So, and
Well, no,
I
the
think that,
broader trend about like people being uncomfortable with trans people is that trans people are cognizant of this and they try to not put themselves in a situation where they would make others uncomfortable. The overwhelming majority of trans people do this. I don't care about your anecdote about Leah Thomas.
okay, so you don't care about the feelings of like real women, um, when they're in their own little safe space and they see, um, this person's, dingling in the
I
locker
absolutely
room.
care about women and making sure they feel safe. That's why I'm talking about the broader trend. You're just talking about an anecdote. Anecdotes prove nothing about the greater trend.
Okay. All right, but another question. What do you think about Blair White? Because
I think
she's
that Blair White's a grifter.
Blair White's a grifter.
Did you know that she
Uh,
lied about her political compass test results? She did the political compass test and she got like a slightly lib center political compass, but then she Googled political compass lib rights result and then took an image from Google Images to show on her like YouTube. She literally lied about where the political compass placed her. She's absolutely a grifter. If she's not a grifter, why would she lie about where her political compass is?
well, I don't know about that. Maybe
So
I'll look
people
into it
literally
more.
like copied her answers and plugged it in and found that it gave a lib left, like a center lib left answer. She lied about that.
Okay. Yeah, I watched some of her videos, and even though she's trans, like she made some really, really good points.
She's
Um,
a grifter. She's
well,
paid by
yeah,
conservatives and does what they say.
yeah, it's not surprising you would think very negatively about her, but
Yeah, because she's a grifter, and I think that people that grift are pretty cringe.
I see, I see. So it's
If she's
funny,
not a
like,
grifter, why would she lie about her political compass test?
I don't know. I have to see some evidence for about that.
Okay, like literally go to your Google right now and type Blair White political compass test lie. And you can find like Reddit threads where people demonstrate they plugged in her answers, they got a lib left result, and yet on her video you can see an open Google tab, like Google Images, that says political compass center right result, and that the Google Images one is the one she showed in her video, not the one that you get by plugging in her actual answers. This is a fact.
Okay. Wow. All right, maybe I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, Blair White's a grifter. That's some pretty solid evidence in my opinion.
I see, I see. I'm curious, how long have you been a trans woman?
How long have I been transitioning? Do you mean socially or medically?
Okay, socially, and then you could tell me the medically. How
Socially,
long?
about 2 years, medically, a year and a half.
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is something that was recent. So, at what point in your life did you start thinking of yourself as like a woman?
Like, when did I start thinking of myself as a woman? I mean, that wasn't until like after I had started medically transitioning and people consistently gendered me as a woman till I thought myself, oh, I guess I'm a woman because this is my lived experience now.
Okay, but like
Before then, it was
what?
just like I would like to be a woman, and transitioning sounds pretty poggers. So I'm gonna do what I think is poggers because it doesn't hurt anyone and it makes me feel happier.
So when did you feel like you were like in the like I don't know like in the wrong body? Like when did you start having those desires and whatnot?
Oh, my entire life, like from a very young age.
So even before you transitioned, people were thought of you as a woman. Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
okay, so like I had like the femboy body where like when I wore women's clothes, people just thought I was a woman. It was crazy.
Okay, did you have like long hair? Was it
Mhm.
anything about you? Oh, I see.
Yeah,
So you
I
had
had long hair. I wore women's clothes before like medically transitioning. People just saw me as a woman, and I was like, wow, this
okay,
feels right.
but before you transitioned and before you socially started identifying as a woman, like did people like think of you as like did they think of you as a woman even before all of that?
Well, it depends the people you ask. I mean, if you just ask
Okay,
some random stranger that I interact with in public, they would probably
yeah.
think,
I
yeah,
mean,
she is a woman. I mean, if you ask my
like
family that like didn't know about it, they would probably have thought I was a man. Like how people gender me is subjective to that person.
so like I'm thinking like in middle school and high school, like did people see you as like a man or male, like a teenage boy or a
Oh,
teenage girl?
like in middle school and high school, people mostly saw me as a boy.
Okay. Okay. So but then you started like even then you thought of yourself as a girl, right? Or no?
No, no, I thought that I would like to be a girl, but presently I'm a boy. That's what I thought.
I see. So you wanted to be a girl, but okay.
But I recognize that
Hmm.
like people gender me as a boy, and that my biological reality at the time was that I was male in all of these characteristics.
So why like what is it about being a girl or a woman that like why did you want to become a girl or a woman, especially
Well,
according to
it feels
feminists
more
that
right, and I feel way more comfortable in my body since transitioning, and I feel way more comfortable in society when people perceive me as a woman. Like it's just about my own comfort, and I think that individual people's comfort matters.
I see, huh?
Like especially
All
when it does
right.
like if you're not harming anyone else, then yeah, do what makes you comfortable, you know?
Yeah, okay. And you don't think you'll ever have like any kind of regrets about what you're doing?
Oh, I don't regret this at all. This has been a great thing for me. It's been so wonderful for my mental health and just my comfort in my own body and my comfort in society. Transitioning has been profoundly positive for me. And the studies show that this is also true for trans people in general.
Are do you are you considering or will you ever have like sex reassignment surgery?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I hope not. That's just my view.
But
Well,
the overwhelming majority of trans people are satisfied with their surgery. The regret rate's only like 2%.
are you sure about that?
Yeah, the study that I have, let me find it. It was a 50-year longitudinal study of over 500, oh, it was 767 people that underwent bottom surgery, conducted between 1960 and 2010. And out of these 767 people over a 50-year period, only 2.2% regretted it.
Oh, okay.
That's
That's
crazy,
interesting.
right?
Okay. Another thing is I forgot his name. There's a man who transitioned and detransitioned and
Okay.
um and he has like his own website and he says like a lot of people contact him. Um oh, his name is Walt Heyer. He's 81 years old and he's a former transgender and he experienced child sexual abuse and and yeah, he says on his website that a lot of people really regret their sex reassignment surgery and they wish they never done it. You should
Well,
I,
this is what one person says. I'm talking about like a 50-year longitudinal study of 767 people, which found that their regret rate was only 2.2%.
yeah. Hmm. Okay. Well, it was nice. It was interesting chatting with you. Um, but yeah. Um, maybe in the future we can speak again if it's up to
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the stream, Jamal. I hope you have a lovely night. And I'm not going to try to convince you to transition. So yeah, I just hope you do you, and I hope you would say the same to me.
Yeah, I would never transition in a million years. Like
Good for you. But
yeah,
don't try to enforce your ideology on trans people.
yeah, and I don't want them to enforce their and impose their ideology on the public.
Well, that's not what like trans people are doing. We're not like imposing an ideology on people. We're just like trying to tell people, hey, we exist.
Yeah, I think every American over the age of like 12 knows that they exist. I mean, it's all over social media. It's all over. It's in movies, Disney movies now. I mean, come on, like
That's
that's
great. The existence of LGBT people should be normalized. That reduces, marginalization because people have to be taught to hate. But if people are taught that, hey, LGBT people exist and it's normal, then they don't grow up to hate.
all right, all right. Well, you have a good night, okay?
Okay, you have a good night, Jamal. Bye.
All right, take care.
Hello, welcome to my stream.
Hey, how are you?
Doing pretty well. What's your name? What can I call you by?
Just call me Huey.
Well, nice to meet you, Huey. I'm Naomi. What would you like to talk about?
So I would like to talk about just Matt Walsh's documentary. So,
Hit me up. Let's go. I did not like the documentary.
why didn't you like it?
Well, I thought that there was not a lot of facts. It was simply a lot of like narrativizing in ways that tries to paint trans people as delusional and dangerous, but that's really not the case. So I just don't like that Matt Walsh was like trying to paint trans people as bad and delusional. And also the documentary was full of lies.
What lies were in his
I have a
documentary?
7-part series on my channel where I expose explicit lies.
Can you just give me like a few right here?
Let's see. The first one, Matt Walsh lied when he said a Canadian father was arrested for misgendering his child. He wasn't arrested for misgendering his child. He was arrested for violating court orders that required him not to dox the doctors involved, which he did. There was a second one. There was like a therapist who said that we have no research on long-term hormone use, but we do. We have research both from past generations and present generations that is long-term. She also said we'll be seeing the first generation of long-term hormone use. That's also not true. Even like we have long-term studies of hormone use. This is not the first generation. There were even generations like back before World War II, and a lot of this research got burned by the bad German party. So yeah, this is definitely not the first generation. And then the therapist also said we already know at least with 10 years of hormones, you're giving yourself cancer. Where is this claim coming from? You don't magically develop cancer in 10 years just by taking hormones. This is just like trying to paint transition as dangerous, but it doesn't just give you cancer. Like that's not what HRT does.
Gotcha.
Um, Jordan
So,
Peterson lied about what Bill C-16 does in Canada. The documentary claims that Dr. Alfred Kinsey performed experiments on children. He never did that. Let's see. Dr. Carl Truman says that gender transition isn't working, but scientific studies show that it is. Jordan Peterson said that biological sex is binary, but it's not. And then Scott Nugent says that Lupron was sued for having irreversible effects. It wasn't sued for having irreversible effects. It was sued for market manipulation. Scott Nugent also said that like puberty blockers aren't reversible. That was another lie he said. That's like 10 lies if you're counting multiple lies by the same people. So yeah, that's just some lies off the bat.
okay, so now my question for you is, so if me personally, if I started identifying as someone that is in the NBA, what would you say about that?
Well, that doesn't make you like in the NBA. Like there's a
Why?
factual reality
Why?
of like the
Why
players
doesn't it
that are
make me
in
in
the
the NBA
NBA.
if I feel like I'm in the NBA?
Well, because there's like an objective reality behind that.
But isn't there an objective reality behind being born with a penis?
Yeah, trans people recognize this. We don't think that having a certain part is what makes you a man or a woman. Being a man or a woman is a social role that we socially transition to fulfill, and we experience a lived social experience that is like that of the gender we transition to,
So,
not
so
the gender we
you're so
transition
you're
from.
mimicking. So you're mimicking. You're pretending.
I'm not pretending to be anything. I'm just like
You
I
you
go out in
just you just
society,
acknowledge
people
that you know
perceive me
that
as
you're
a
not
woman.
a.
People hold up. When I'm out in society, people just perceive me as a woman, they treat me as a woman, and descriptively, that's what it means to be a woman, is to be treated as one by society.
I mean, that's just society respecting you. That doesn't mean that they actually see you as a woman.
People see me as a woman. Like I know what my lived experience is going about my daily life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to each their own. But I'm just saying there's some people that at the end of the day, they will not see that as a woman. I guess it depends on the individual.
I mean, like, sure, the way that people like gender someone is ultimately subjective, but I mean, we can look at like the broader trend, and the overwhelming trend is that people gender me as a woman. I actually like have not been misgendered publicly since transitioning.
So, but at the end of the day, it's like you're still like imagining that you're a female.
Well, so are you talking about biology or are you talking about like gender as the social phenomenon?
But if we're okay, so one, they're both the same thing. Like I know they say that they're
Wait,
not,
wait,
but
wait. One's a social phenomenon and one's a physiological phenomenon. These are related concepts, but they refer to different things.
then my social. Okay, switch the subject. What's your thoughts on the Wolf Girl from Matt Walsh's documentary? Is
What
she a
about her?
wolf? Is that a wolf? Like, did you
No, she's not.
accept?
She's not objectively a wolf. She just allegorically relates herself to wolves, which I'm like, okay, you do you.
But you realize that it's not actually a wolf, right?
Well, yeah, she's not objectively a wolf. She just allegorically relates herself to, being a wolf. And it's not like society affirms that she's a wolf. Like, she's just using this as an allegorical part of her identity, which I think is fine. Like, I don't care if people are like, oh, I relate to animals in this way. Like, that's cool. You do you.
So, what would be the difference if I allegorically saw myself as a 12-year-old and wanted to play baseball with 12-year-olds?
Well, I mean, like there is like like there's a reality of what it means to be a certain age, and you can't change that. But you can absolutely change most aspects of your biological sex by medically transitioning, and you can 100% change your lived social experience by socially transitioning.
I mean, you can't though. Like at the end of the day, like you can't get pregnant. Like that's
Well,
one of
that's
the
not the
key.
only characteristic that's
I mean, that's
biologically
a
female.
major one though. That's a major one.
I mean, like biological sex accounts for a lot of characteristics. It accounts for chromosomes, reproduction, hormones, anatomy, and also like brain matter distributions. And what we find with trans people is that just by taking HRT, you change those last three. That's a majority of the biological characteristics that are different in males and females. And trans people are aware of this. We're aware of what you can and can't change, and we just like the changes that we do.
So okay, so out of out of like respect, like respect people. I'll respect people's pronouns. Like if they're nice to me, like I'll say like whatever you want to be called. I'll even call you woman. But do you understand that there's do you believe that there can be a difference between respect and actual belief? Do you believe that those two can coexist? If that makes
Yeah, I
sense.
mean, yeah, I think that people can, subconsciously or even consciously think of something differently than like suppose, I mean, like you can be like dislike someone in your head, but still be nice to them, just like in person. Like that can absolutely be true.
No, but so okay, so like you could be a nice person. I could respect your pronouns, but at the end of the day, like we don't have to see you as a like woman, you know? But like we
Well, how am
could
I not a
still
woman? Like that's my lived social experience.
but my lived social experience could be a bird. Like I could see myself as a bird flying in the sky. That doesn't
But
mean that I'm
people don't
actually
perceive you as a bird and people don't treat you as a bird. Meanwhile, people perceive and treat me as a woman.
uh,
Descriptively, that's what it
I don't
means to be a
know. Not
woman.
everyone though. I mean, not everyone sees you as a woman.
I care about like the overwhelming majority in the broader trend. And when I'm out in public, people just perceive and treat me as a woman.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know. But
You
I
can't
guess
refute my lived experience. I'm the one who's most intimately aware with my lived experience.
yeah. Um but at the end of the day, it's just like I guess what if people start respecting me as like a bird or like start respecting me as a Chinese person? That like does that mean that I'm Chinese?
Well, I mean, like you can't change your race, but you can change many aspects of your
So
biological
wait,
sex,
wait,
and you
wait,
can
wait, wait. So
absolutely change your
so
lived social
so why
experience.
couldn't I change my race if I changed a feature in my face to make it more like a certain,
So race
yeah.
race is a genealogical thing. It's passed down from generation to generation by a lineage. This is different from ethnicity, which is like physical characteristics, and it's different from culture, which is, kind of like these social aspects. Sure, you can actually integrate into a new culture, and I guess there are surgeries that could change some ethnical aspects. But at the end of the day, you can't change your race because you can't change your genealogy.
But you also can't change your natural like hormones too. Like you can't change your
You can literally
biology.
change your hormones. I take
No,
HRT to
no,
change my hormones.
but you're taking pills. That's not natural. Like that's literally just you're taking pharmaceuticals
I don't
at the
care
end
whether
of
or
the
not someone's hormones are, produced by their body or store bought. Plenty of cis people have to take hormones due to hormone deficiencies.
Yeah, but the cis people still have like the tool that is able to make children.
Not always. I mean, there are plenty of cis women that are infertile,
I
but
mean,
they're still women.
yeah, but they still have the genetics too that show that they're a woman, like the bone
I mean, you can
density.
also
The
have like you can have like XY chromosomes and be entirely like phenotypically female. There are conditions like Klinefelter's. No, sorry, it's Swire's is the XY female. Also, complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. These are cases where you will have an entirely female body, but you'll have XY chromosomes. These really aren't that reliable markers.
they're pretty reliable. Your penis and vagina are pretty reliable things that have literally
Well,
caused
ultimately,
us to
exceptions
survive.
exist,
But like
and meanwhile,
without
like,
that, so do you believe in evolution?
yeah, like this is a studied fact.
So do you believe that like, well, you believe that if you remove your body parts that you're not going to be able to reproduce, right?
Yeah, so what?
So isn't that like the opposite of evolution? Like that would be devolution. Like you're literally stopping your offspring in the
What?
future.
I don't want to have biological kids. Why does this matter?
I'm just saying, like that's like there's some scientists that say that the purpose of life is to like reproduce and like to advance. And
Okay,
you're,
well, what if I find a different purpose in life? Like reproduction isn't
yeah. I
everything.
mean, I guess at the end of the day,
And
like
also even like reproductive sex is more complicated than, men can always, make swimmers and women can always get pregnant and give birth.
but you can't get pregnant and give birth if you don't have that anatomy or like if you
Right.
remove
And I'm
your
aware that I don't have that anatomy. And I don't think that that's makes what makes someone a woman, and I don't think that's everything that
no
there
no
is to
no
being
but
female.
like you literally can't reproduce if you get that surgery.
Right, but reproduction isn't what makes someone a female. Like, there's so
I
many
mean
more
it is
biological
though.
characteristics that
It
are
is.
different in
Okay,
males and females
but
than
do
just
you
your
not
reproductive
realize
ability.
that I could say that as like a bird too, and say technically I'm not a bird, but I don't need wings and I don't need a beak to be a bird. I can have the brain of a bird, and some paid off pharmaceutical scientist can say that the study says that I am a bird. I'm technically a bird
You can't
because they.
transition to bird.
Why? Why can't I identify as a bird?
Like you can't become an animal that's like a non-human. Like, but you
Why?
can absolutely change many aspects of your biological sex.
I mean, both of them are delusions. Both of them
Gender
are
dysphoria is
imagining.
not a delusion. Actually, in the 80s and 90s, we tried to treat gender dysphoria with antipsychotic medication and anti-delusion therapy. And what we found is that it doesn't work for curing gender dysphoria. It doesn't make the gender dysphoria go away. Meanwhile, medical and social transition is the treatment for gender dysphoria. It's
No,
not a
okay,
delusion.
but here's the thing. I'm all see being comfortable and being accepted is different than actually being though. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like those are two different conversations. Like I'm all for like
Right. And
treating
and like
people.
my lived social experience, my lived social reality is that of a woman. And my
Yeah, but
lived
that's
and my biological reality is that I have an intersex collection of biological traits that put me more in line with females than males, although I do have some biological characteristics that are typically considered male. I acknowledge my biological reality.
but that again that just makes you masquerading as female. It
What? How am I masquerading as female? I have
you
many
still have a
female
penis, right?
characteristics.
You still have a penis, right?
Yeah, so what?
So you're, I mean, that's technically a male.
Well, that's one characteristic that's
Yeah, but
considered to be
that's a
male, but
big
I
that's
have
a
many other characteristics that are considered to be female, like my hormonal system, my overall body anatomy. These are things that are overwhelmingly female.
but the in crucial areas, I mean, it's still male.
This is just one area. I'm concerned with my entire biological reality, not just one area of the body. It's more useful to
Okay,
think
but
about,
again,
people's
back to the
biological
bird
reality
example.
as
Back to
the
the bird
collection of their
example.
characteristics.
Back to the bird example. I could do the same thing with the bird. I could say, okay, it's just the wings and it's the beak, but besides the wings and the beak, I still can squawk like a bird. I could still call like a bird. Like that doesn't mean that I'm a bird. I mean the key things like the wings and the beak is still of a human.
Well, like we don't have like things that can medically transition you to a bird.
Well, who's to say that? I mean, if I identify as a bird, that's trans
I have not
animal.
once made a like I have not once made a claim about like identity automatically makes you a thing. I'm saying that lived social experience makes you socially a woman, and that trans women that take
But
HRT
socially just
have a
means you're
biological
around.
reality that gives them an intersex collection of biological traits. This is just the facts.
No, the facts are the people that are going along with that are either very accepted, like they're doing it to be nice, or they were tricked into thinking that it's a genuine woman.
I'm
But
not tricking anybody. I'm just living my life, and people just perceive me and treat me as a woman. Like this isn't a trick. This is just my lived social experience.
but the lived social experience does not equal a female though. Like just like being female and like
I've
acting like
already
a
said that I have
girl.
an intersex collection of biological traits. I'm aware of my biological reality. What's wrong
uh,
with that?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying like it's not true, but it doesn't mean you're a bad person. I think you could
Wait,
still.
it's not true that I have an intersex collection of biological traits that are majorly aligned with females?
No.
That's absolutely true. Like, if I go to a doctor, they need to be aware of my biological reality that I'm endocrinologically female. This will affect things like heart disease, bone disease, and my risk for cancer. Doctors need to know that hormonally I'm female. This is a biological fact about me. And, it's ascientific to deny my biological reality.
I mean, that's ascientific to say that I'm not an NBA basketball player because I feel like one and I play basketball outside.
I'm
Yeah, I'm
talking about
not in
my
the.
physical biology. You're talking about feelings. You're the one who's brought up feelings this entire time. I'm talking about lived social experience and biology, which
Yeah,
can be
I
studied by
watched
the
I
social
watched the
sciences
NBA.
and the physical sciences.
I watched the NBA, so I kind of feel like a professional basketball player.
Once again, you're talking about feelings. I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about my biology, my physical
You
characteristics,
have a
and my
penis,
lived social
but you have
experience.
a penis, so your biology isn't of a female, which is the crucial organ to reproduce.
That's not the only biological trait that is considered like male
But
versus
that
female.
is the most important biological trait that separates man and woman.
I mean, like, I think that, like, if you're going to classify my biology, you need to be aware of my entire biological reality. And my biological reality is that I have an intersex collection of biological traits. I am cognizant of this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, my thing is do at the end of the day, do whatever gives you dopamine, whatever makes you happy. Um, Now, you would agree though that the women's sports aspect of it, right? That trans women shouldn't be able to play women's sports, right?
I mean, if like I think that the women's sports issue is relatively complicated because ultimately the question is whether or not medical transition brings you physically in line with cis female athletes. And based on the studies, it seems that there are likely some biological traits that will not change with HRT that might be advantageous that come from a male puberty, but overwhelmingly, the traits like that HRT affects are the ones that really matter for sports competitions, and it really mostly brings you in line. Like, I will definitely admit that there still could be some advantages carried over from puberty, but they really don't seem to be that big of a deal. Like, the percentages are pretty small in terms of differences. The most
The
complex, or sorry,
article,
the most advanced study we have to date found that prior to transition, trans women had a 15 to 31% advantage in push-ups, sit-ups, and run speed. But after just a year of transition, the advantage in push-ups went away entirely. The advantage in sit-ups went away entirely, and the 21% advantage in run speed dropped to just 9%. So sure, there still could exist some
so
differences, and
yeah,
there obviously does, but they don't seem to be that big of a deal.
so I'm reading here that from NBC News, they cited a study saying new study suggests that transgender women maintain an athletic advantage over their cisgender peers even after a year on hormone therapy.
I'm not denying this. I'm just saying I don't think like in terms of the raw percentages they're that substantial.
So, I mean, technically, couldn't you get um, someone like LeBron James to transition and then say
And
he's a
HRT would
female?
absolutely demolish his muscle mass, his bone
He's six
density.
foot nine. He would still dominate the woman's sport. I mean, he dominates the men's sport. You don't think he would just absolutely kill because he still carried over those male genes. So wouldn't that
Well,
be?
the genes don't matter for like sports. What matters is like the physical characteristics, like the height. And like, sure,
But yeah,
it probably won't change his height, at least not more than by like an inch or two. Actually, it's really interesting. HRT often does change people's height by a couple inches, but like it will destroy his muscle mass, it will destroy his bone density. But yeah, obviously there still can be some characteristics that are carried over. Just based off of like the data we have and the broader trends, it doesn't seem like there's really any like outstanding cases or upsets. It's just a couple trans women have won a couple events, and honestly, I don't think this is really indicative of like something needs to be done about it. I really think kind of the best solution is just let them compete, and if there's like upsetting cases, outstanding cases, we can address this on a case by case basis, revise policy to be reasonable. Yeah, I just don't think it's like an issue unless like broader trends are demonstrated that it is.
well, the broader trend showed that Leah Thomas was like over like 400th in the world. I might have even been 500th, and then now she won. Now she was the number one. She went from like
I
500 something
I,
to
I
number
know I
one.
know I know more about this. I would love to talk about this. So
Okay.
Leah Thomas, when she first started competing in the men's division, she was a consistent top eight athlete. She consistently placed within the top eight of college men's swimming events. Then, in that first year where she was transitioning, she dropped to 400th in the men's division because her biology was much more in line with women. And so, obviously, she was getting destroyed by the cis men. Then, the second year, after she had been transitioning long enough to compete in the women's division, she's now once again a top eight competitor. So it seems she went from a top eight competitor in the men's division to a top eight competitor in the women's division, which is what you would expect if, transitioning made you in line with cis women. So, yeah.
Wait, she was or Lee, yeah. I mean, she was like 500th some though. Like it
That was
wasn't.
after she started transitioning and estrogen destroyed her muscle mass and her physicality.
I mean,
Before
still
that,
looked
before she
pretty
transitioned
physical to me
entirely,
compared to
she
the
was a
other
top eight
females.
competitor in the men's division.
Still looked pretty physical to me compared to the other woman on the podium.
Well, her performance seems to be in line with cis women.
Not really. Like
She hasn't
won
she hasn't
by a
destroyed
pretty.
any records. She just won an event.
I mean, did you watch that event? She dominated.
Like, I mean, I don't think that like she's like that was one event that she won. Plenty of other events she hasn't won.
But you don't think that this is going to set a precedent that like more just average, like average,
She was not an
middle of the
average
road.
athlete in the men's division. She was a top eight competitor, and after transitioning, she's still a top eight competitor. Saying that she was
No,
an
but
average competitor that became a dominating in the women's division is an outright lie. She was a top 8 competitor prior to transitioning.
if I was a middle of the road athlete and I was wanted to win some games, could transition. And I feel like
Well,
people,
medically transitioning would absolutely like nuke your muscle mass and your physicality.
but
Also,
even
like,
with that, it's
why,
still
if you don't want to be a woman, why would you transition just to win sports? That's
I
so
mean,
silly. Why would
I
people do
wouldn't, but
that?
I
People
bet
are not
you
doing that.
not right now. But when there's a lot of money, when the money starts increasing and that there's
Ah, yes, because
higher
we all know that there's
stakes,
more
just
money in
wait.
women's sports than men's sports.
Not well, yeah. I mean, not as much, not nearly as much money. But let's say I wasn't good enough to play professional men, and
If
then
you're
I
not
could
good enough
just.
in the men's division and you medically transition, you won't be good enough to play in the women's division
That's
because
not
estrogen
true.
will destroy your physicality.
That's not true. I bet you there's a bunch of people in the NBA G League right now that if they wanted to, they could be the superstars of the female league.
Not after medical transition.
No, even after medical transition, there's people that are like 7 foot because they benefited from being a man, from having male genetics, and then now they could just be like, you know what, let's dominate.
I mean, like you're gonna need to prove that like this is something that's happening and that like this is actually a
It's not,
problem.
it hasn't happened yet, but just wait. If we keep on this route, there will be people that.
That's the slippery slope fallacy. I don't care about your slippery slope.
Is it not happening? I mean, it started
Yes,
from.
you just admitted that it's not happening.
No, no, no. I just said, is it not happening right now? Like the slippery slope. It started with gay marriage. Now
You're
everyone
literally
accepts.
doing the slippery slope fallacy right now.
Yeah,
So
it's
you don't
true.
say, "Oh, this is a problem because it's going to lead to this." You need to evaluate each thing on their own merits. That's how
I
you
mean, you
avoid the
literally just
slippery
have to
slope
look at
fallacy.
where we were at and then where we're at now. And
I think that people weaponizing a disingenuously claimed identity to try to like dominate women's sports is a bad thing. But also, I think that medical transitioning would destroy your physicality, and that people are not going to do that because they don't want to become women.
well, yeah, but there's going to be people in middle of the road that there's going to be more and more trans people, and there's going to be more men that are transition over to female and dominate the women's leagues if we make that
But
acceptable.
that's not happening.
But it will, because this is the
You're
very
slippery sloping.
because it's a slippery slope. It started with
Slippery
what
slope is literally a logical fallacy.
it's
This is
not.
not a valid argument.
It's not. Just look at where we are now.
Okay,
Like first it
Google,
was
is
accept
slippery
gay
slope.
marriage.
Well, hold up. Is slippery slope a logical fallacy? Slippery slope argument in logic, the fallacy of arguing that a certain course of action is undesirable or that a certain proposition is implausible because it leads to an undesirable or implausible conclusion. Very series of tenuously connected premises, into which understood causally or logically. The slippery slope argument in logic, the fallacy of arguing that a certain course of action is undesirable or that yada yada yada. It is literally a logical fallacy. You can Google this.
You can Google it. Google has been very liberal. If you haven't realized, they do not show you
You can
the
look at every classical logical source. Slippery slope is a logical fallacy. It does not construct valid arguments.
just look in the past. First, it was accept gay marriage. Everyone accepted gay marriage. Um, then it was put, it was bake a cake for two gay people, and then people are
Nice
doing that.
logical fallacy. I don't care about your
And
slippery
then
slope.
now
I
it's
care about valid
transgender.
arguments.
Teach trans kids, teach transgender and genders in school, and transgenders in women's sports. What's
What's
next
wrong with
after
having
this?
like trans people like what's wrong with schools teaching people that trans people exist? There's nothing wrong with that.
We shouldn't even teach heterosexual to kids. I disagree with teaching sex in general to kids. They're young little
I'm going to
kindergartners.
have to hard disagree with your stance. I think it's very important that kids from a very young age are made aware of consent and the names of their body parts so that they can call out abuse when it happens. It is very important for kids to be taught this from a very young
But the
age.
teachers are
What
the
you're
ones
advocating
abusing
for
them. A lot
leads
of
to
the
abuse,
teachers are
and
the
that's
ones
not okay.
abusing them. But what happens when the teachers are the ones that use those lessons to get in and
Wait,
abuse
if
them?
a teacher teaches a kid like how to call out abuse, that makes the kid able to call out that abuse. That's not abuse.
No,
Source, I made it up? Is that
Go
Is
to
that you?
libs of TikTok would say otherwise. There's thousands of examples of
Oh, Libs
teachers.
of TikTok is such a reliable source. Oh my goodness.
I mean, it really is because it's literally just resharing like
Anecdotes?
no, it's resharing.
It's
Well,
literally
there's
just
many
anecdotes.
anecdotes.
I don't care about your anecdotes. I care about the broader trend.
I
Libs of
mean,
TikTok is just biased anecdotes.
no, it's really not. There's thousands of them.
They
There's
show
thousands.
individual examples. Each of those are anecdotes. And they
I mean,
hand-pick those examples. These are cherry-picked anecdotes. That says nothing about a broader trend.
but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. I mean, it's all over the place.
Wait, like, what's the problem?
There are transgender teachers pushing this ideology on kids. Like not just kids, like I'm talking like kindergarten and first grade, second grade.
Wait,
Like
how
they're
are they pushing the ideology on kids? Because from what I've seen in educational resources, the overwhelming majority of lessons that discuss LGBT topics are just, hey, LGBT people exist, and that's okay. It's not pushing an ideology on anyone, it's just making people aware that certain types of people exist and that it's okay that people are that way. That's not pushing an ideology, that's just educating kids about types of people that exist.
but I mean, you're pushing this on kindergartners. Like they're literally pushing this on kindergartners. Like all these pronouns and stuff. Like there's like over 60 genders, and you don't
That's
think that
not
would
what's being
confuse
taught
a
to
kid?
kindergartners.
There was some really weird stuff. Go to libs of TikTok. There's some very crazy stuff that they're
I
pushing
don't
on
care
kids.
about your cherry picked anecdotes. I care about the broader trend. And the broader trend is that kids are usually like late elementary to early middle school before they're even made aware of these topics. And the awareness is super surface level. It's just, this is what it means to be gay, or this is what a trans person is. And they exist, and that's okay.
But that's not what's just happening. Yeah, in some cases that's
The
happening. In many
overwhelming,
cases, as a
the
matter of fact,
overwhelming
that's
trend is that that's what's happening. You're pointing at cherry picked anecdotes, which I don't care about. I care about the broader trend.
I mean, but you're acting like this isn't happening at least there's at least two or three a day, not just like a week, like two or three a day of these teachers, like different teachers, and they don't make content themselves. They literally just reshare it. They literally just reshare what these teachers are pushing on kids, and it's not just anecdotes. Like this is like
Wait,
I could see like a few
you're
if it was
saying
an
that
anecdote,
you're
but
saying these are examples of what's being shared. That is by definition an anecdote, my dude.
no, because they're not. It would be an anecdote if I said, "Oh, here's my opinion. Here's my opinion. Here's my opinion." This, it's like these are all they're doing is resharing what these teachers have shared.
You know what
That's all they're
anecdotal
doing.
evidence is? Here, we can Google that for
No,
you.
no, no, no.
What is
But
anecdotal
there's thousands of
evidence?
them. There's thousands of them. There's and these are specific
Thousands of
people.
cherry-picked anecdotes says nothing
But that
about a
shows that
broader
there's
trend.
thousands of incidences of different people pushing this on young children.
These are like cherry-picked
But
anecdotes.
every day there is new examples of transgender teachers or LGBTQ teachers pushing this on children. You think that's okay? Like,
So first off, like these are anecdotes. For everyone you point out, the overall broader trend is that LGBT education is just these people exist and that's okay. But also, I've seen like the Libs of TikTok page. Most of it's not even bad. It's just like telling people that hey, gay and trans people exist and that's okay.
no, that's not what they're saying.
Because the
They're
majority
talking.
of the page is not even problematic at all.
Wow. Okay. Well, I encourage everyone that's watching this to go to Libs of TikTok and check that page out because it's pretty telling about what's
Did you know
going
that
on
Libs
in
of
this.
TikTok is also a grifter?
A grifter. I mean, they're just exposing the agenda that they're
So,
trying to push to
Libs of
children.
TikTok said that they would like received harassment for like from being doxxed, and they like posted a picture of what they claimed was their house like being egged and stuff. And if you Google image search greenhouse being egged, they just stole like the top image from that. They literally lied about their house being like egged.
I don't know about that, but
No, like
all
this is
I
a literal lie. Let me see. Libs of TikTok house egged lie. Uh, yeah, if you Google search, you can you'll find the evidence of the now deleted post where they said that their house was egged. But if you just Google image search greenhouse being egged, you'll get the result that they stole and posted.
Well, that's news to me if that's true. But all I know is they've shared tons of accounts of legitimate teachers that are pushing this ideology on like
I don't care about
kindergartners.
cherry picked anecdotes, and also most of the stuff I've seen on there isn't even bad.
Oh, that speaks volumes. But yeah, I guess to each their own. But at the end of the day, um, I think there's always going to be people that you know that uh, agree with
Like,
what's
for,
going on and people
like,
that
what do you
don't.
precisely mean by like pushing onto children?
By teaching them that there's hundreds of genders and they them pronouns, he
Wait,
him.
are you saying that they them pronouns is not a fact?
Yeah, it's not, it's a delusion.
What they and them are literally pronouns in the English language,
No,
and it's
no,
been
no, but
used as a singular pronoun since as long as English has existed as a language.
no, but at the end of the day,
No,
it's
look,
like they're
literally,
teaching.
Shakespeare used the singular they.
Well, Shakespeare is whacked for using that. Just because Shakespeare did it doesn't mean it's not normal. Doesn't mean that it's normal. I mean, it, one
Like
person is.
all of the like the English language for as long as it has existed has had the singular they pronoun. It's been completely normalized. Like it's even more accurate to use the singular they when you don't know someone's gender.
No, it's not. Like they is a group of people. It's not one person that identifies as they. That's crazy. It doesn't
But
make
like no,
sense.
like this has been used as a singular like the pronoun they has been used singularly for as long as English has existed. Like this is just the normal use of the verb or
No,
sorry, pronoun they.
we're putting pronouns in profiles now. Like that's nuts. Like we all know what people are. Like just I mean that's just I'm just saying what it is. Most people. I mean, there's a lot
So
of
so
people
wait,
that'll
wait.
go along with it and respect
So
it, but
so far you said that the gender ideology that's being pushed on kids is letting them know that pronouns exist. I think you should learn about parts of speech in elementary school.
parts of speech. Um,
Yeah, like pronouns, nouns, verbs, adjectives. You should probably learn about these in elementary school. Like, wouldn't
yeah,
you agree?
yeah. I mean, I did, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, it's like pretty nuts when I see like a female that has like she, her in her profile. It's like we know you're a girl. Like we could just
What's
like
wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
what's wrong with it? I mean, I guess it's just like why are you doing that? Like we know you're a girl.
Why do you care so much? Like, it doesn't matter.
It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense that someone would like publicly declare their pronouns. I mean, if you want to be called like certain pronouns, like publicly declaring them is a fine thing to do.
It's like I don't know. It just they're eating up the indoctrination.
Wait. Can you please demonstrate how this is being pushed onto kids?
How's it be? I mean, again, go to libs of TikTok. They have thousands of examples, like literally thousands of examples. Like every day, there's a new example, and you.
What are these things that are being pushed onto kids that's so bad?
Well, I just told you, like they're telling a young little kindergartner that you can be whatever you want to be. Be they, them. Be he, her. Be she, him. Be z, zim, zim, zer, zim. Well, I don't know. There's like a million of them. It's like clearly confusing a kid.
I'm pretty sure that in general, like kindergartners are not being taught about neopronouns.
Well,
Usually not even
again,
pronouns in general. I mean, like if you're
I mean,
talking about like parts of speech and gender, that's usually a late elementary school thing. And also like what's wrong with telling like elementary school kids like, yeah, you can be you.
but I mean, that's confusing adults, let alone children.
How does it confuse kids? Like just letting kids explore themselves? Like how does that confuse them?
You're teaching a kid like to you're grooming a child, like basically pick your pronoun, do this, do that, and
How is you need to demonstrate how this is grooming.
you're literally pushing your reality, which is not a real reality, on
Like
children.
all they're telling is that, like, yeah, people that go by different pronouns exist, and trans people and gay people exist. If you're saying that this is grooming them into that, you need to demonstrate how that makes them gay or trans. It doesn't. They're just told these people exist.
But they're not just told these people exist. They're groomed to believe this their reality as well. Like the teachers come out to their kids, like, and I'm not even just pushing this on
What's wrong with a
transgender.
teacher coming after their kids?
Why when I was in school, I didn't know anything about my teacher's sex life. That's just like nuts. Like why does
Wait,
a
what
kid
does this have
why
to do with
is
sex? We're just talking about
because
like who someone loves and who
no,
someone
no, no.
like who
Why do we
someone
need
is.
to know the dates that these teachers went on, like what their sexual orientation is? Like that should not be taught to it like
What?
that.
That's not what these teachers are talking about. They're just saying
Go
like,
to
I'm
everyone,
gay.
follow libs
This
of
is the
TikTok.
kind of people I love.
Follow libs of
That's totally
TikTok, and
fine.
you will see
I mean,
plenty
like,
of examples what I'm talking about.
and most of the stuff I've seen on there like isn't bad. It's just like gay and trans people exist. And like that's totally fine because kids should know that gay and trans people exist.
Give them a follow. Give libs of TikTok a follow on Twitter, and
I don't
you'll
know why you
see.
would want to follow some like grifter that lies about their house
The,
being egged. Not really
the,
worth it.
again, they're not grifting anything. They're literally
Well, if
sharing.
they're not a grifter, why would they lie about their house being egged?
So you're talking about their house being egged. I'm telling you, they literally reshare. All they do is reshare
No, no, I'm
stories.
saying why would they lie about their house being egged if they're not trying to grift?
Why would they lie about their that? If that's true, then that's crazy that they would make that
It
up.
is true. This is
I
the
don't know.
fact.
Okay, well, that's that's weird, but separate that weird thing from what they're sharing, because at the end of the day, they're
I think the
sharing
lie
real.
points out a broader trend that they're grifting. They care about the attention and the outrage. That's why they cherry pick examples to show. And that's why they lie about their house being egged.
But okay, that's like saying that's like saying I all right. Imagine let's just say Drake has like, let's say you're a fan of Drake music. I don't know, just picked an artist, and he freaking robbed a store, and then I tell you like he has good music, and then you say, well, he robbed a store. Like it's like, okay, sure, but he's still putting out this content. Like I'm not talking about what they did personally. I'm talking about the content that they're putting out and
No, no, but if
resharing.
their whole platform is to like generate this outrage and they've demonstrated that they're willing to lie to generate outrage, then that shows that they're grifting. Like this is not
No, but
genuine.
it doesn't
Their
matter if
engagement is not
they're
genuine because they're
it,
lying to create outrage.
it doesn't matter what their intentions are, because what they're sharing is
I care about
literal.
genuine engagement.
No,
I
but
think
what
you
they're
should too.
sharing is literal videos that you can pull up of LGBTQ teachers pushing this ideology on kids that are younger than 10 years old.
Once again, the overwhelming trend is that it's not something that's being pushed on kids. It's just kids are being made aware that LGBT people exist. And that's a good thing. It normalizes the fact that, hey, gay and trans people are out there. And if kids are aware of these identities and they're aware that they're, normal, they don't grow up to hate.
But it's not about growing up to hate or not. It's like there's a way to teach people to like love everyone and like accept, but also at the same
Yeah, you
time
just
not
tell
be.
them that these people exist, and that's it.
But
It's that
that's
simple.
not what's happening. They're not just being told these people
Overwhelmingly,
exist.
that is what's happening, and you can't point to libs of TikTok as proof against that because those are cherry-picked anecdotes. If
Then
you
I
want to
could
talk
point
about
to
like
your
what's being taught
then
in
I could point
schools,
to your
you need to
sources
point
as
at the.
cherry picked anecdotes. These are literal videos that these teachers share
No,
themselves
no,
that
I'm
they
I'm
just
talking about like
reshare.
the broader trends of like educational plans. Like we have studies that like demonstrate like what's actually being taught in these schools, and it's just hey, gay and trans people exist. Like that's the curriculum that's being set up.
I mean, I heavily disagree. Like this is really happening in schools. Like it's not just like a one, not even like just like a 10-time thing on 10 random places. Like this is hundreds of times that libs go to libs of TikTok and
I don't
watch
care
what
how many cherry-picked anecdotes you throw at me. I care about the statistics and the broader trends.
the bro. I mean, we literally just had a male swimmer dominate woman swimming. Like that's just like not. I mean, this is happen. If
Interesting
you
that you
just,
point to another anecdote rather than a broader trend.
I mean, if we keep on this route, it's
And also,
like,
Leah Thomas isn't dominating women's swimming. Like, she's never broken a record and she won one event. You can hardly call that domination.
I watched. It was, and especially when they went on the podium, they looked. I mean, completely incomparable to the other females on the podium.
Oh, that image is actually a little bit okay. The second place person, she intentionally like made herself where she like moved her body like this in order to make herself appear smaller. She was trying to accentuate that difference for like the media outrage, which was pretty mean, to be honest.
I mean, imagine if you were a natural or biological female and a biological male just beat you in your sport that you worked your
Uh-huh.
heart out.
You know what I do? I try to swim faster.
But that's again, you don't understand science. Like males are better at
No,
sports
I
on
literally
average.
understand science. I've said that, like, obviously there are some physical advantages that still can carry over from having a male puberty, but overwhelmingly these advantages go away. And, when the
They
slight
don't.
differences that could still exist are there, they don't seem to be that significant because if they were that significant, trans women would probably be just dominating their field, but they're not. And also, yeah, maybe you should just try to swim faster.
That's again. So
Pull
so
yourself up by your bootstraps and swim faster.
so if LeBron James just joined the WNBA because he felt like it, you would just tell the woman to just play harder.
I mean, he would have to medically transition, and it would absolutely destroy his physicality.
No, you don't, because I don't think Leah Thomas got uh, got its wiener removed, right?
Well, no. Medically transitioning is an HRT. HRT is what destroys your physicality and your muscle mass. Leah was required to go under HRT for it was like a year or two before she was allowed to play in the women's category, and she followed that policy.
But but even with that HRT, there's evidence and studies showing that still had an advantage. Like there's literally
But the
so much
studies show that these are
evidence.
not very significant. They're pretty minimal. Like, yeah,
What?
differences exist, but they seem to be pretty minimal.
No, it seemed pretty
Anaconda says, I think
outrageous.
it's 2 years. Okay.
But at the end of the day, I don't understand how it's different
This
being
cat says that bone
transgender.
density remains. No, actually, HRT changes your bone density regardless of the age you take it at. That's a lie.
I don't understand how it's different um, identifying as another gender versus identifying as like identifying as a bird or identifying as an age. I think
Well,
they're all the
you
same
can you
thing.
can change your lived social experience through social transition, and you can
Same
change
with
most
identifying as a
aspects of your
bird.
biological sex through medical transition. But
But
like, you
same
can't
if
just
I identify as a
like this
bird
has
and I
nothing to do with
get
identity.
something, if I change my voice box so I can squawk at people, even though I don't have wings and I don't have a beak, I could still squawk the best that I could, which is
Do
a
people will
bird.
people recognize you as a bird and treat you as a bird? They won't.
If I flap my hands around and I squawk, I mean, some
People aren't
will,
going
I
to recognize
guess.
you as a bird and treat you as a bird. But
Some
meanwhile,
people
if
will
you look like a woman and act like a
if the
woman
news tells
and
them to.
people perceive you as a woman, then
If
you really are a
if the
woman.
But if the media starts telling people not to bully me and to treat me like a bird, I bet you there would be some sheep out there that start treating me like a bird because they think that they're nice and great people for doing it, but really they're just catering to my delusions of being a
Well,
bird.
you can't change your species, but you can absolutely change aspects of your biological sex.
But you're mimicking the other sex. You're not genuinely the other sex.
Well, you're genuinely changing your hormonal composition, which genuinely changes your biological characteristics. These are biological facts.
You're changing some measurable aspects, but that
Trans
doesn't
people
mean
know
that.
you don't change everything. Like we're aware of what changes and what doesn't.
No, because a lot of trans people say trans women are women, which
Well, that's a statement
equal
about sociology. That's not a statement about biology. And that's
what?
absolutely true. You can absolutely change your lived experience through social transition.
But now, yeah, I mean, of course you can change social when social is engineered through media and through culture of just brainwashing, but that doesn't mean that it's real. Just because so just okay. So you're judging
My lived
society
social experience is very real.
because they're respecting you. That doesn't mean that people realize that it's not legit just because you got
People
hormones
perceive
in
me
you.
as a woman. That's what my daily experience is like.
I mean, some people, but there's also okay. So actual or biological woman, people perceive them as a woman, but I mean, transgender woman. Like the reality is, there will always be many people that don't that they will respect you, but they won't see transgender woman as like the same as woman on the same
Obviously,
like.
there are differences between trans women and cis women. That's why we have the adjectives cis
But
and
then why are
trans.
you saying
But like
trans
much like
woman or
how
woman?
short women are women, trans
So then
women are
trans
also
woman.
women.
Okay, but your slogan at the bottom is trans woman or woman.
Yeah,
So
trans is just an
you're
adjective. It
admitting
describes
that
what
they're
kind
not
of
the
woman I
same.
am.
But you're admitting that they're not the same by what you just said. You just said there's differences. So I
Well,
agree
just
with
like
you.
how there's differences between short women and women, but short women are still women. Yeah, that's just what an adjective is. Do you need to go back? I know you said you were struggling with pronouns earlier. Do you need to go back to like first grade? We can talk about adjectives too.
No, I think I think you need to go back to a science lesson. I think you need a good science
Well,
lesson.
I'm a PhD science like PhD student and scientist, so like I'm
Yeah, it
studying
shows
science.
how hijacked it is. It shows how hijacked science has been. It's pretty sad.
Do you know how much of a self-own it is to say that like colleges and universities are like leftist indoctrination camps? Like you're admitting that the educated are on the left.
No, I'm not. And trust me, I don't want to be on the left if if they believe that trans women could play women's sports. I mean,
Well, I
that's
mean,
just
trans women are playing women's sports, and they're not like there's no
well,
demonstrable greater trend of them dominating the field. There's just some trans women that have won some events.
that sum is going to keep growing if people are just like keep cheering on uh, biological men dominating women. And
Calling
here's the
trans
thing,
women
like
biological men is very dishonest because it ignores how HRT affects your biological sex and how that matters for sports.
HRT, at the end of the day, it doesn't cancel out all of the natural edges
It
and
cancels out the
advantages.
overwhelming majority of them.
It I mean,
You can't deny that.
height
Like
is
I will
something.
absolutely concede that there can exist some advantages that would carry over from having a male puberty, but you cannot lie and say that like, like the differences from HRT are substantial. Like the overwhelming majority of your physical characteristics will change because of HRT. All of these ones that matter for sports, they do change and they become overwhelmingly in line with cis women.
Uh, Agree to disagree. Um,
I'm just talking about facts. I don't care about your feelings. Like this is
no,
the
no,
facts
no,
of what
no, no, no.
science
You're
shows
not
medical
talking
transition
about
does to your
facts.
body.
You're not talking about facts. I just pulled up
I
facts showing
literally
that.
cited the study that found that the
Well, I
entire
cited
advantage in
that
sit-ups
trans
and
women.
push-ups goes away, and that the run speed advantage drops from 21% to 9%. These are biological facts.
See, you cherry pick your studies too. The study I'm looking at shows that trans women retain athletic edge even after a year of
How
hormone
much?
therapy.
What percentage?
Um, British
What
Journal of
percentage in what
Sports
categories?
Medicine.
What
British.
percentage in what categories?
I mean, I'm pulling it up now. So trans women performed 31% more push-ups and 15% more sit-ups in 1 minute and ran 1.5 miles 21% faster than their female
We're
counterparts.
talking about the same study. Those are the numbers prior to transition. The numbers after transition is the advantage in push-ups and sit-ups went away entirely, and the advantage in run speed dropped from 21% to 9%. You're talking about their pre-HRT statistics. We're literally talking about the same study.
This is the one from the British Journal of
Yep,
Sports
we are
Medicine.
talking about the exact same study. You just recited the numbers that are before they transitioned.
I mean, I literally just clicked. I searched
Right.
transgender
And you told me the
advantage
numbers from before they transitioned. I'm telling you the
because,
numbers after they transitioned, which is what matters for their ability to play in sports.
but there's still a clear advantage even after.
Not in sit-ups, not in push-ups, and just 9% in run speed does not seem that substantial. The
And
overwhelming
again,
majority of their
this
advantages went away with HRT.
it it didn't though. Like you just look
What?
around. Like
Going,
look at
okay, going from 15% advantage to 0% advantage, going from 31% advantage to 0% advantage, and going from 21% advantage to 9% advantage is overwhelming and substantial. It's just funny that you don't know how to read studies.
I mean, I literally just pulled up the study right now. I googled transgender woman sports advantage, and I just clicked on the first thing. I didn't. I mean, you told me to read it on the spot. I just literally like it's not like you obviously took hours and like studied this like, but clearly there's an advantage over for trans woman. I mean, it's a natural
Dude, just
born
take the
dude.
L. You were wrong about the study. Can you take the
Um,
L?
I'm not taking
The
it now. We
science
all
shows
know
that
it's
the
a dude.
overwhelming majority of biological advantages go away with medical transition. Just take the L. These are facts.
They're not facts. You literally look, you can tell it's
We're
still a
talking about a
dude.
peer-reviewed study. How is this not facts?
You
And it's
can
one that
still
you tried to cite against
who
me.
studied this? Some big pharma shill that's freaking pumping up pills that they realize that they're gonna cake with money off of the whole pill aspect because they realize the
What
amount of
is
pills
this
that they're gonna be able to
reach?
sell.
This is a peer-reviewed study. This was verified by independent scientists and doctors. You are so mad. Stop reaching. Let's talk about
I'm
the
not
facts.
mad. I'm just saying
I
that
don't care about your speculation. I care about the facts that were studied and
the
peer-reviewed.
facts the facts are if you have a penis, you are a dude, and if you have a vagina, you're a
Well,
female.
there's more to biology than just those body parts. Like there really is more to biological sex than just your reproductive organs.
Well, I guess
Also,
there's
you're
more
pivoting
to
again because you know
there,
that you're wrong about the study and you're wrong
there's
about what.
more there's more to being a bird than just
Can you
having a
can you
beak
take
and
the L
wings.
and stop
There's
pivoting?
there's
Hold
more
up.
to
I
being a
want you to take
bird.
the L before you pivot. Can you please take
I'm
the L
not
before you pivot?
to take an L. How is it an L to say that natural biological dudes shouldn't play women's sports? Like that's
You're
not an
pivoting.
L.
You're
It's not an L.
pivoting. No, no. The L is that you were wrong about how HRT affects people's physicality.
Well, I
Overwhelmingly,
mean,
it
yeah, I
brings
was
you
wrong that I
mostly
didn't
in
read the
line with cis
study
women.
before I freaking went on here. Like, I literally just typed it in on Google. You asked me to pull up the study. Like, I literally just read the first paragraph
No, no,
while I'm
no.
on
You
here.
pulled up that study. I just happen to know the study you were quoting.
You said
You
pull
were the
up the
one that pulled up that
study.
study. You said, oh, trans women retain their advantage. I'm going to pull up a study. And then you pulled up a study that proves my point. Take the L.
I pulled up a study that. No, there is.
You are
Read the
so
freaking
intellectually
article.
dishonest if you can't take this L. You were wrong about the study.
I
Admit
mean,
it.
yeah, you pre-read this. You pre-read the study, so I did read the beforehand part, but
How is it
it's
wrong for me to read
there.
what the science says before I come to talk about these topics? I think it's a great thing that I decide to
Yeah,
educate myself before I come out here spewing out opinions.
the nah, that's
If you
unreal.
can't take the L, we cannot continue this conversation because I like you
All
are
right, yeah, yeah.
intellectually
I mean,
dishonest if you can't take
I,
this L.
yeah. I mean, I'll take the L that you read the study beforehand. You asked me to pull it up while I'm live. Like, of course you're gonna.
You took the L that I know what I know what the science says.
That
That's the L.
yeah, you read that study that was the top one on Google.
Hold up. I need to be clear. You claimed that trans women retain a substantial advantage. I said the overwhelming majority of those advantages go away with transition. You said that's not true. The study proves that the overwhelming majority of advantages do go away with transition. You lied about that. That's the L you're taking.
But by your logic, I I am a bird. I am a freaking bird with a beak
Stop
and
pivoting. Stop
no,
pivoting.
that's not a
It,
pivot. That's the same
that is a
logic. You're
pivot.
just
You're
biased.
jumping away from the fact that I'm holding you to the fact that you lied. Okay?
I
If you
didn't.
cannot be intellectually honest and admit that you were wrong about this, we cannot have this conversation. I'm here to
I
engage
mean,
in good
yes,
faith and talk about facts. If you're just talking about your feelings, then that's kind of cringe. I want to talk about the facts, and you have to
the
admit when you're
facts
wrong if
are
we're talking about
the
facts.
facts are you're mimicking an
Pivot, pivot. You can't
okay.
take the L.
I mean, I'm not the one taking the L. I'm not the one taking an L. I'm not the
Oh my
one
gosh, you are so intellectually dishonest. Bye.